bottom line, the Stone Cold Sensei.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
This is The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast starring Renny D and friends. Thanks for listening to The Pencil. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.
Welcome to episode 11 of The Pencil. We are the professional wrestling podcast on the World Wide Web, on your cell phone, on your computers, on whatever device you're using to access The Pencil this week. We're glad to have you here with us, and we have a jam-packed week here for you. We're going to dive into Monday Night Raw from last night, as well as our previews for the upcoming Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And later tonight, we do have the new president of operations for Heavy On Wrestling, Jon Wolford, joining the show to talk about what it's like to be a promoter in independent wrestling and the bullshit that you have to deal with when it comes to yourself. And more importantly, guys like Kevin Nash and X-Pac and all the guys who have been in the Fed before, who now have to come to these small-time shows and do things that way. But like I said, before we get into that, Travis Dirty Mester's on the line as he makes his way to Nashville, Tennessee. Dirt, you're going to Music City, USA. You've been on a country music kick lately. Are you just living on Cloud 9 right now, or what is going on in the life of Dirt?
No, I first of all, episode 11, it's excited to get into that double digits. It feels like we started just yesterday, but my goodness, it's been fun for 3 months. I'm excited for the future for the Pencil. Secondly, and more importantly, I am on the road as I call in this week. I'm about an hour outside of the Twin Cities now, about 13 hours away from Nashville, Tennessee, like you said, and it's going to be quite a week, my man. I get to have my little vacation. I'm going to pick up a buddy. We're going to drink a lot of old style, maybe some Pabst Blue Ribbon. We are going to see a lot of live country music, do a lot of singing, and chew a lot of tobacco for the next 7 days. So assuming I make it back, I'll be back better than ever next week. I'll be back, that's for sure. Better than ever, I can't promise.
At what point do we have to sit here and beg Grizzly, Wintergreen, or Grizzly, or Skoal, or Copenhagen, whatever tobacco companies out there that's trying to get some advertising? All they got to do is send us a couple tins of Wintergreen, and we'll plug it on the show. I mean, that's not hard at all. We will make a commercial for these guys if they supply us a log of Wintergreen Grizzly that we can chew on a regular basis when we go to country concerts, when we go to the bar, or if we're just watching Monday Night Raw and we want to throw a dip in. And this is by no means am I encouraging our listening audience to stick a dip in your mouth, but I'm telling you, when you do it and you're going to do it, there's nothing better than having a nice cold beverage in your left hand, a dip in your lip, and your lifeline in your right hand, just looking up potentials that's out in the neighborhood or out in public that you're just out there sprawling and prowling for. And part of me thinks that with you going to Nashville, there's going to be a lot of the three things I just said. There's going to be a lifeline that's going to need to be charged at all times. There's going to need to be a fresh dip in that bottom lip at all times, and I'm going to have to go on a limb here, and I would say that you're probably going to want to have a cold beverage in that hand about 95% of the time, if I'm correct.
Cold beverage. I've heard through the grapevine. I've been looking into a lot of people that have been to Nashville. They've told me that there's nowhere in the country that there's more beautiful women, and I mean, if I assume there was a cold one, maybe some tobacco, maybe some country music, maybe some beautiful women. I don't know if I'll ever come home, to be honest. If last night was the last Monday Night Raw that I'll ever see, because this is the last week that I'll be on this earth, because I'll have done everything I wanted to do. It was a great Raw to end on, I'd say.
It was a fantastic Raw, and what's surprising is last night's Monday Night Raw was the lowest rated Monday Night Raw of the month, and it ended up being the absolute best Monday Night Raw of the month, the best Monday Night Raw of the fall, at least of this brand new season, as they call it back in September. In my estimation, I thought this was the best Raw, since probably pre-SummerSlam or post-SummerSlam, directly when we're building up the Brock Lesnar, John Cena situation.
It's the best Raw that hasn't had Lesnar in a very long time.
No Lesnar last night. We saw the return of Paul Heyman, and we saw Paul Heyman get RKO'd by the greatest wrestler on the planet. And if this is your first time listening to this show, I'm telling you right now that I am a big Randy Orton mark, and for good reason. He is the best wrestler on the entire planet today. And last night, he showed it. In my eyes, he showed why he is the absolute best wrestler in the world. And I wanted to ask you, Travis, on this episode is because It was probably a month and a half ago when I asked you who your favorite wrestler was, and you responded with Dolph Ziggler, and you asked me the same question, and I said Randy Orton. And at that point, Dolph was getting a push for the Intercontinental title. He since then captured that Intercontinental title. Let's hop into it. Do you like what they're doing with Dolph Ziggler at this point? Because as of this recording, and this is pre-main event and pre-SmackDown, he does not have a match at Hell in a Cell on Sunday to defend the Intercontinental title.
I think he's exactly where about a month or two, whenever we began this podcast and we had that conversation that you were alluding to, and Dolph Ziggler was my guy that was on the top of my list of my favorite wrestlers at that time. He's still either there or very close thereafter, because I am a man of my word, and my word is sometimes wrong, and when I'm wrong, a man can admit it. And Randy Orton's the best in the company. We'll let's make sure that we got that out in the open. He's the best. Anybody that's arguing against it isn't watching enough in the last 2 to 3 months. But I digress. Dolph Ziggler, I like where he's at, because he's not a main eventer. He's not a guy that's going to carry a show, and he's not a guy that's going to be in the main event picture, and I'm okay with that. He doesn't have to be a great wrestler, to be a great company guy, and a guy that they need to push. I don't like the fact that he gets a belt and now he's losing every televised match, but I'm not going to cry over spilt milk on that, because he's losing to guys like Cesaro, and I'm assuming in the next 48 hours after this recording, that match will most likely be announced, that it'll be Cesaro against Ziggler for the belt. And when you go out on your back on Raw, sometimes you'll win on the pay-per-view, whatever they might do with him. He's getting on TV a lot, and he's in meaningful feuds, and he's got a belt, and he's in some sort of a title picture that's better than where he was 4 months ago. So I'm okay with it, but I don't see any reason with what's going on at the top of the card. They don't need to be worrying about pushing somebody else up there, because in a good way, it's starting to get a little crowded, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and that's the question I guess I had for you, and I'm also a Dolph Ziggler fan as well, but is Dolph Ziggler becoming a little stagnant, I guess, is my question, because even with a push, he's still the same Dolph Ziggler. So I just wonder if he needs some sort of change, and if it's a heel turn or whatever it might be, but I think he needs something to spice up his character, because as a fan, I love his work. I think he sells better than almost anybody in the Fed. A case in point, last night when he took the uppercut from Cesaro, it looked like he died. It was beautiful to see that.
If I was Sheamus or Cesaro, I would be asking backstage Ziggler every night, because he makes those two look like they're great in their own respect, but he makes them look like $1 million every time he's in the ring with those two, because they're brutes, they're strong, they've got these moves that are perfect to go against Ziggler, who's just going to flop around like a fish the whole match, and it's great.
Yeah, and there's a reason why Eric Rowan told me that there's one man he wants to work with is Dolph Ziggler, because he sells so good. He makes the opponent look great, and Eric Rowan wants to look the best he can look. Put him in there with Dolph Ziggler, it definitely happens. So I guess I also agree that I think from this recording until Hell in a Cell on Sunday, they're going to make that match for Hell in a Cell. It's going to be an Intercontinental Championship match. Cesaro deserves that, especially after he went over clean on Monday. There was no cheating, no heel tactics involved. He has to have a match at Hell in a Cell, or, I mean, somehow they have to put it in there, whether it be at the pre-show, which I'd be actually really disappointed to see that on the pre-show. But just to have that match in general on Sunday, I believe is going to happen. When we talk about our Hell in a Cell predictions tonight to the audience, we're not going to include, that match is not on the card. We are going to pick that match just in case it is, but as of right now, like we said, it's not on the card. And one thing I wanted to mention to the listening audience, too, we never ask you guys to donate money, and I'm never going to ask you guys ever to donate money. I support this podcast. I paid for everything myself. The only thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is, if you can, is go ahead and share us on Twitter, on Facebook. Tell your friends about us so we can increase the listening audience on this podcast, because I believe that Travis and I, we put quite a bit into this podcast every week, and we're actually pretty knowledgeable. And case in point, we're going to cover a couple topics here tonight that we talked about a couple weeks ago on a Q&A session we did on our website, as well as some of the stuff that we've been saying on this podcast over the last several weeks that are now coming to be true. And these are things that didn't show up in the dirt sheets. These are just things that a good, brilliant, genius wrestling mind like myself, and even I'll give Dirt credit, and Dirt, we come up with this stuff, and hell, we should be getting the job and the paycheck for doing what these guys are doing. But that we're on the subject of the Intercontinental title, I want to switch pictures over to the U.S. title. We're going to have Sheamus and we're going to have The Miz in the match on Sunday for the U.S. Championship title. What did you think of Sandow last night on Raw?
I liked it. I think I mean, he's been some of the best stuff going on TV. We've talked about it how many times. We don't need to go over how great he's been as Miz's thumb double, excuse me. But him getting the pin last night, I thought was a nice added feature. I thought it was Miz is funny. He's a funny guy on commentary. He's a guy that they can use without having him be in the match, especially having a guy like Miz now being alongside him. I think it's probably only going to lead to the title match on Sunday being somewhat of a beatdown of The Miz, and I think The Miz is going to be the odd one out in this situation. Maybe a Miz versus Sandow, because Sandow is so much more popular than The Miz. That's the view that I'm getting on it, which is not a bad thing, I suppose, but I have a feeling this is going to end sooner than I want it to. It's going to leave me wanting more.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. I thought The Miz in the match last night was pretty decent, I guess, with Sheamus, but the best part of the whole match to me was the reaction that The Miz had after Sandow got the pin. Like he obviously,
yeah, The Miz was better last night out of the ring than he's been the last 4 weeks in the ring. Like
right.
It's very bizarre the way that whole idea has been going with those two. Whoever's not in the match is the one that I'm paying more attention to practically.
Yeah, I mean, the match itself, I mean, when Sandow was actually in the ring, he kind of disappeared, I guess. You know, like what you just said, and our attention was on Miz. After the match, Sandow goes over. Miz ultimately looks shocked to the moon, and then I liked what they did. The Miz said, "I won," and I thought that's kind of comical and funny because his stunt double is the one that won the match, and he now claims that he's 3-0 against Sheamus. Setting up the match on Sunday. I think the match on Sunday between The Miz and Sheamus is going to be a good one, and I actually think top to bottom the card for Hell in a Cell is not that bad. For the fact that we don't have a World Heavyweight Champion on the card, they did a pretty damn good job of putting together some great matches, in my opinion.
They sold it well enough to make sure that I had my WWE Network login information in my car, because I'm going to need to find a honky-tonk in Nashville that's going to allow me to see Hell in a Cell. Otherwise, I'm going to be playing catch-up next week whenever I get back, and I don't want to do that.
That's the thing. They have 4 weeks of television, and in one show, in a 3-hour time span, they did more in last night's Monday Night Raw than they did in the weeks prior leading up to it to sell the pay-per-view for last night. Whether it be having Mick Foley on the show, and the thing is, like, the go-home shows generally don't have a lot of wrestling on it, but last night's show obviously didn't have a lot of wrestling, but the wrestling that they had I thought was good. Even the I guess the AJ Lee Alicia Fox match wasn't that bad in my eyes. But I thought the wrestling was good last night. I thought the promos were timely and they made sense and they built to Sunday, which is what you and I kind of touched on last time, is the fact that when you have a go home Raw or a Raw leading up to a pay-per-view, every segment on that show should lead into something for Sunday's pay-per-view, because they need to sell the network. They need to sell the pay-per-view. And I really thought last night's Raw was one of the best ones in doing that. I can't really remember a segment from last night that that wasn't attached to some sort of segment that's going to happen on Sunday. And I'm sure there probably was. You know,
there wasn't, but there wasn't some throw-in 6-person tag match with some miniature people. There wasn't the bunny. There wasn't anything stupid. There was stuff that was exactly, they were building some sort of feud or some story with almost everything they did, and that's how you should feel after you watch an episode of Raw. Yeah,
especially the go home one. And there are people who are going to say they might be upset that we had to deal with Randy Orton in the ring twice with promos, and then in a match, and then he had 2 backstage segments. Well,
Give me more, Orton.
I'm totally fine with that too, because he's a professional and he's entertaining to watch, and I'd rather watch Orton do 5 segments than watch Bo Dallas and Adam Rose. And no offense, I like Bo Dallas, I do. But the thing is, we have a pay-per-view on Sunday, and they're not on it, so that's why they shouldn't have been on Raw last night, and they weren't. Great booking by the WWE on that point. You and I kind of touched on this today. Is I wonder who actually was the head guy last night and behind the scenes, because we've heard in the past that Triple H and Vince are kind of button heads in the past, or in the back, in the back room, in the back locker room, I guess, or whatever it might be when it comes to the shows, where Triple H will write a show and Vince will change the script an hour before showtime, because Vince ultimately has the last say. He's the owner. He writes the paychecks. I don't know who was behind it last night, but whoever was, thank you. You know, as a fan, it was very enjoyable to watch. I only watched a little bit of it on DVR because I was a little bit behind, but I didn't find myself fast-forwarding through pretty much anything. I think, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to the Bella match, but that was because I was busy doing something else, and I probably should have paid a little bit more attention to it. But I don't recall I guess a horribly bad segment from last night's show. Do you have one that you can think of?
No, I mean, I didn't love all the post-match stuff with the Big Show and Rusev. I wasn't completely sold on all of that. I thought the match with Big E was all right, but I would say I was expecting that to be a highlight for me just because last week with Rusev and Henry and Big Show, I was surprised how much I was interested in it. And this week I didn't know, I wasn't sure that the follow-up did it for me as much as I was hoping it would. But
sure.
It wasn't the worst thing. I mean, Jesus, if you put that segment on one of the last couple of weeks of Raw, it would have been one of the best. So the fact that it was one of the worst is not a bad sign.
And the thing is, that segment, it caused so much uproar on social media because fans were, they pretty much came out and called WWE classless and tasteless in that segment. And here's my response to that. I enjoyed the segment because it's old school heat. Everybody knows that's not a real military officer. Common sense. It's not a real military person. First off, if somebody ever tries to jump into the ring in the WWE, just like any sporting event, the camera will pan off of them. Because if you sit there and show somebody doing that, it encourages others to perform in that type of behavior. So we know it was a worker. It was an indie worker from the area. Big Show, or Rusev gives him the super kick. People on Twitter are freaking out, just saying, I can't believe the WWE would do this to their own country, yada, yada, yada. Okay, let's rewind a couple weeks ago. Big Show pulls down the Russian flag. Same thing to the Russian people. They were offended as well. Legitimately, they were offended, and I know WWE used it into a storyline. But if you back up to the Attitude Era of professional wrestling, does anybody remember when the Big Boss Man showed up to the Big Show's father's funeral, and he tied up his car to Big Show father's casket and took off with it, dragging a dead body in a casket across the graveyard? That, people, I mean, what they did last night is PG compared to that. And after September 11th, they had Sean Davari and Muhammad Hassan, I believe his name was, come out and run an Iraqi gimmick after September 11th. I think there are a little bit more pressing issues in wrestling in the past that were a lot more serious than this one. If you're really upset about the fact that they super kicked a dress-up military officer to put over an angle, then turn the damn channel. You shouldn't be watching wrestling in the first place because it's as PG as it comes. And I like what they did. I thought the Big Show was very emotional in his promo. Yes, it was a little bit drawn out, a little bit lengthy. But I think the match, I am excited for that match because we legitimately have a big man in the Big Show. And Rusev has been unbeatable, and obviously Lana is going to be out there looking as Lana always looks.
I was hoping we could get her to stand on the other side of the ring. So I love seeing her face, but if she could just stand on the other side of the ring for a match, it'll take my attention away from what Rusev is doing. But I'm okay with that every now and again if she wants to stand with her back to the camera.
Yeah, she is a performer, very, very much so in there, and I can't wait.
She's an attention grab. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I'll meet my Lana in Nashville this weekend. For all I know, God, Music City, it's gonna be great.
If you meet Lana or a Lana in Nashville, I will go and sign up for my fucking green card tomorrow to move to any country in the world that she lives in to be there with you, and I will make sure I get you guys milk and cookies every second of every day, and I will make sure that you're happy as long as you live because there is no chance that you will ever get a girl like Lana, and there is no chance anybody really can get a girl like Lana. But the fact that's funny is Rusev, although he's a big dude, dates her in real life, and that ultimately shocks me because I feel like
Bravo, Rusev.
And when The Rock was out there saying those comments a couple weeks ago, I mean, I bet you any money Rusev was probably a little bit jealous because Rocky Maivia could have gotten that if he really wanted it. And maybe he did. Who knows? I mean, who am I to say that The Rock didn't get it, right? I mean, he's got numerous offices in the back. He could have easily done whatever he wanted to do in that building. And if he did, bravo to Rocky Maivia. I'm all for it as well. Let's move into another subject here. We talked about the IC of the U.S. title. We just got done talking about Big Show Rusev. Another part that is extremely interesting to me on the last couple Monday Night Raws is the Wyatt family vignettes that they've been playing. And we've seen the Luke Harper one come out first, followed by Eric Rowan's, which I thought both were very well done. And then we finally saw Bray Wyatt's. I believe it might have started last week, but they really showed him a couple times last night. And just an unbelievable job by the WWE video production team. I mean, it literally seems like it's a trailer for a scary movie right around the time Halloween's coming out. And I don't know what to expect. He says we're coming. Is it going to be a similar invasion type thing that's going to happen like when they first debuted? But they're not together. So Where do you see this? First off, are you happy with the vignettes? Do you think they were effective? And what do you think they're going to do with the Wyatt family?
I do think that the vignettes are they're being effective because there was a bit of time where the Wyatt family and Bray Wyatt itself, I would say like the end of the Cena feud and the Jericho feud, where it became a little bit confusing as to, is this group going to fall by the wayside because they might not know what to do with them. Whatever they did now, I mean, they got that interest back. I mean, exactly how they came in is how Bray Wyatt's acting now, and that's what they need to get back to, because that's when he was at his best. And there's not very many guys in the company that don't need to have anything to do with any belt or any title picture, and they draw your attention every time they're on the screen. And Bray Wyatt's one of those guys.
He's just so good. He's so good.
Yeah, because he's weird. He's different than anybody else. He's captivating when he talks, and you want to know what's next and who's the we that he's talking about, who is the she that he's talking about. There's so many options that they could go, and I don't know that in the back, in creative, they might not know where they're going yet. They might just let this play out and then figure it out as they go, because he's saying a lot of the same stuff he said a year ago whenever they debuted, and there was no real answers over the last year. He was entertaining. He was in good matches. He was in good feuds. I mean, him and Daniel Bryan had one of the best matches of last year at the Royal Rumble. And it just kind of ended, and things just didn't pick up the way you wanted them to. And if they're going to try again, I'm all for it, because a lot of times you lose out once, or you get to that close to the mountaintop one time and you get thrown back, you don't get back. And at least they're giving him a chance, and it looks like they're going to give him another push of some sort. I'm interested in what's going to happen, but I'm in the same boat as you. I don't even know what to guess at this point what's going to happen, but I'll be watching regardless, which is a win for the WWE if they have eyeballs on the product. And I'm interested in whatever he's doing. I don't know what it is, but I'm interested.
It's intriguing. It's really, really intriguing, because he is a character similar to The Undertaker and similar to what Mankind was back in the day. And I think moving forward, you need to keep that real. You need to keep that surrounding him. He needs to be an Undertaker-type character. He needs to be a Mick Foley-type character. And if that means having him be face and having him be cheered because he's so good on the mic, if he needs to keep that I guess that cryptic type of a feel to him. And his promos don't make much sense, but you listen, and he draws people in, like you said. And when he comes out, people wave their cell phones in the air with I got the whole world in my hands. And they're probably not going to keep that up, I wouldn't think, moving forward. But I do expect them to make some sort of impact at Hell in a Cell, at the pay-per-view. If not, at least the following Monday Night Raw, because they need to come out and do something. I see him getting inserted into the U.S. title picture, to be honest with you. Going after Sheamus for the title moving forward, because I kind of think Sheamus potentially will go over on Sunday, and that's, we'll get into that here in a little bit, but I think he goes that way. I'm not sure at all what the Wyatts, the other two, do, Eric Rowan and Luke Harper, or exactly what their role in the company is going to be, and I fear that they're doing this awesome job on these vignettes, but they may get lost in the shuffle. I don't know. There's a whole lot of direction they can go with these guys, because they really only have a couple plans set in stone moving forward, because obviously injuries have thrown a wrench into the situation for the WWE with Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan and everybody else that gotten hurt. So I think that now is the time. If you're there, and this is your opportunity, you need to step up and take it, because you might not get one again. And there's quite a few people in the locker room, Kofi Kingston, Zack Ryder, people like that can vouch and say, hey, I had my opportunity. It went away. I didn't do anything about it. Now, I'm begging to be on Superstars, for Christ's sake. So
yeah, whatever they're doing with the vignettes, like you said, there's a ton of guys that would love to have a vignette on them that are sitting in the back that aren't on TV at all. So it's something. Hopefully it'll turn into something more in the next 6 weeks.
Absolutely. A couple things I wanted to get into with you, Travis, here before we get into our Hell in a Cell predictions is we didn't touch on this last week, and shame on us for this. If you didn't watch SmackDown, the 15th anniversary edition of SmackDown, they showed a clip, a backstage segment with The Rock and Triple H, and it was entertaining as all get up. It was great. It was just like old school entertainment to me, seeing Triple H and seeing The Rock. These are two of the wrestlers that I grew up in my teens watching and idolizing, and part of the reason I got into professional wrestling. And I guess the main course, or the main, the point of the backstage segment was talking about a potential match in the future at WrestleMania between Triple H and The Rock. And Rocky Maivia saying he would kick Triple H's ass, and H saying he'd kick The Rock's ass, and it was pretty funny, but also it made you think. And you're thinking, are they just doing this because it's SmackDown, the 15th anniversary? It's funny. They taped it on Raw when Raw was in Brooklyn. But is there any truth to that? And that's the question I want to ask you is, do you think there's any truth to the fact, or any truth to that interview, that we potentially could see Rocky Maivia, The Rock, the biggest superstar in Hollywood right now and one of the biggest superstars in professional wrestling history, come back for a WrestleMania match, whether it be this year in San Francisco or next year in Dallas when we're going to be there, and challenge Triple H, in the semi-main event or main event or whatever it might be?
100% yes. 100% yes. That backstage segment was, like you said, unbelievably entertaining. And you've been in the professional wrestling business for over a decade now. And what is the knock that people that don't watch that much wrestling, what's the knock that they have on a lot of these guys? It's that they're roided out, they're stupid, they're on drugs, they look like, you see like Scott Hall, you see guys that get sick or die at an early age or go crazy after they're done wrestling. All these bad things to do with former wrestlers or older wrestlers or guys that were before the Attitude Era or even during, guys that got hurt a lot, whatever it might be. There's all these ideas with these guys. H and The Rock are absolutely unbelievable. They are eloquent on the microphone. They are intelligent. They are businessmen. They are great actors, Hollywood superstars, now COOs of the company. They are the top of the game from the last 25 years in this business. And they haven't lost a step. I mean, The Rock, I would argue that Triple H last year at WrestleMania, what a match. He wrestles once a year. He put on a show. He can still go. The Rock, he's slowed down, obviously, from his younger days when he was a wrestler. He might not be the same in the ring as what he used to be, but they don't have to be. If those two want to put on a 3-month feud going into Dallas, WrestleMania 32, from January to April, tell me one person that's not going to be engulfed in that feud every time those two are on the TV together, because they are unfucking believable when you put a microphone in their hands. And I don't believe that anybody's writing the script for either of them. I bet they're just fucking straight shooting, and it's awesome.
Yeah, no one's writing that script. That Rock's not going to read off a script, and Triple H ain't reading off a script, but yet he makes everybody else do it.
And you and I know just as much as the next guy. I've seen Triple H's Twitter. I've seen Triple H in magazines. I've seen the stories about Triple H. There's nobody that Triple H wants to beat and be better than The Rock. During his wrestling career, he's had interviews saying how there's times when he'll see The Rock's Twitter that he's in goddamn Japan for a movie premiere and he's up early clanging and banging, and that's what gets Triple H to the gym, because everybody needs their anti-hero, and Triple H is the best bad guy, and The Rock is the best good guy, and they've pushed each other for 2 decades, and they're not done yet.
No, there's absolute truth there, I believe, as well. And I don't think it's this year, but I think 32 in Dallas when they're at AT&T Stadium. It's the biggest fucking stadium that they'll be at. And they like money, and that will draw people, that will sell tickets, that will sell network buys, and I, for one, would absolutely mark out for it. I would love it. I hope it happens, and it better happen. Don't tease us, WWE. Just don't be doing that to us. Not when it comes to something like that. It definitely stirs up my childhood youth. I want to jump into two more topics before we get into our Hell in a Cell predictions. Before we get into the dual main event and which one should actually go on last on the show, news this week, couple things. First off is Dudley Boys and Kurt Angle potentially coming back to the WWE. Would you want to see the Dudleys and or Kurt Angle back in the WWE?
Yes, I watch TNA pretty regularly for Impact. I think the tag team division in TNA is much better than the one in WWE, and the Dudley Boys are a part of it. I think they would improve the tag team division immediately, and I think that we will see them back in the WWE in the next year. I wouldn't mind seeing Kurt Angle as well. I would be excited to hear his music. I'd be excited to hear his promos. I don't see it happening. So I will say yes to both I'd be excited about, and yes to Dudley's, no to Kurt Angle of realistic people that will be back in the company.
Yeah, I'd love to disagree with you on it, too. I do see the Dudleys signing a short-term deal with the WWE to spice up the tag team division. There is mutual interest on both sides per the dirt sheets. The Kurt Angle situation, I'm not really sure what to believe on the dirt sheets there. He wants to work a light schedule. The WWE told him he has to come back full-time. I just don't see why they would do that. He would be a great person to put in there against Rusev if they're going to do USA versus Russia, although I know you hate it. It's just a good spot for him to come back. And Kirk Pike can still work, too. He can get in there with a Daniel Bryan if Daniel Bryan can get back, or somebody else. So I do think the Dudleys will be back. I don't think Kurt will be back either. And I guess before we hop into our predictions, which we're going to get into our predictions here in about 3 minutes, last night we saw a lot of Ambrose, we saw a lot of Rollins, we saw a lot of Orton, and we saw a lot of Cena. I thought both promos last night were effective selling the match. I thought that the Foley segment was great with Foley, Ambrose, and Rollins because Foley really sold the Hell in a Cell structure as the gimmick in the match. But I'm not going to put anything bad on John Cena or Randy Orton. I thought Orton was fantastic in his promo last night. I thought Orton giving the RKO to Paul Heyman was great and foreshadowing potentially what the future could be. What I want to do, Travis, is we know that you liked the segments last night. We know that they were effective. I want you to tell me, if you're booking Hell in a Cell, which match are you putting on dead last on Sunday's pay-per-view?
Before last night, I would have said Ambrose and Rollins, and you told me I was wrong, and I'm a man, and I can admit when I'm wrong, because last night changed it, and you are correct. Orton Cena needs to go on last. Orton was too good last night, and that match now being for the number one contendership has too much riding on it with the two biggest stars of the last 15 years. That goes on last.
Yeah, and I told you that earlier, and I thought that when you're dealing with these four superstars in particular, your professionals and your veterans are Randy Orton and John Cena. They've been there before. They've been in the Hell in a Cell together before, and they've wrestled each other numerous times. They're your two biggest superstars in the last 10 years, like they mentioned last night on Raw. They have to be last on the show. Does that mean they're going to have the best match?
Yes, correct. You are right. Go. I was just going to say that.
Does that mean they're going to have the best match? No. Rollins and Ambrose are going to go out there and kill each other because this is their first time on a pay-per-view in this type of big gimmick match. I mean, you see when they were in the Shield some of the stuff that they did. Well, now it's singles competition, and they have a chance to really show the world what they can do in individual competition inside that structure. They're going to bring their A-plus game, and they're going to have the best match of the show. I mean, last night, if there's any indication of what you're going to see on Sunday, Rollins takes that bump off the apron into the side of the cage or into the side of the hell off on a drop kick. You're going to see all this stuff on Sunday. But whether or not they have the best match isn't the argument to who goes on last. You need to have the last match of the night needs to be basically the most important. And the most important is who's going to challenge Brock Lesnar in the future for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship title. And plus, this also gives us a chance to have Rollins come out and do whatever he wants to do to Randy Orton, because last night we saw Rollins curb stomp Randy Orton, which shocked me, actually. I knew something like this was coming. I just didn't think it was going to happen last night. I thought it would happen on Sunday. But if it did anything, it definitely made people want to tune in on Sunday to see exactly what's going to happen. Were you as shocked as I was to see the curb stomp as early as last night?
I was. I thought they were going to continue to tease things, and I thought that it would be Orton RKOing everybody and their mother, pretty much. I didn't think that it would be another Seth Rollins basically turning his back on people that have been taking care of him. So, I mean, they're pushing Seth Rollins to the moon, and hopefully it works out. But, yeah, I was surprised it happened as soon as it did.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and I'm excited for Hell in a Cell on Sunday, and I hope you can watch it at least live. If not,
I'm going to find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And as long as I got a PBR and a dip, I'll be watching Hell in a Cell one way or another. I'm going to find a way.
I mean, I'm sure you got your credentials. Just give it to some bar down there. They'll throw it on for you. Hell, it's free entertainment for the entire bar until they get in trouble from WWE, and then they can deal with it at that point. But we come to that time of the episode. This is our third edition of Renny versus Dirty, and I am 0-2. I have done absolute shit when it comes to the pay-per-view predictions. I need to be better, and there's only one way to be better at this, and that is to beat you this weekend at Hell in a Cell with our predictions. I have the card in front of me. Let's go ahead and let's start this off here, and let's wrap up the first part of the podcast before we bring John in from Heavy on Wrestling. Travis, we're going to go ahead and pick the one match that's not currently on the card that you and I both think is going to be on the card, and that is going to be an Intercontinental Championship match with the challenger Antonio Cesaro, or Cesaro, I guess, as we know him now, taking on Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental Championship. I'll start, and I will say in that match, if that match does happen, I am actually going to go ahead and say that Antonio Cesaro does finally go over and does capture the Intercontinental Championship gold.
I agree. I would take Cesaro in that match. Ziggler's a good worker. He'll make Cesaro look great, and Cesaro will walk out with gold.
Right, and then the reason why I picked this is I just think that Dolph's a little stagnant here. They need to do something different with him, and I think they can see that too. And they know that Cesaro's ready to do something, and him being an Intercontinental Champion will be fantastic moving forward. So right now we both picked Cesaro for match 1. Match 2 is the Family Affairs match. Loser becomes the other's personal assistant. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard in professional wrestling, but it is the Bella twins wrestling each other. Nikki Bella versus Brie Bella. Travis, you want to go first on this one?
Nikki Bella. It doesn't make any sense to have Brie win and then have Nikki following her to the ring like a little lapdog. I think it makes sense the other way around. So I'll take Nikki Bella just because I think the storyline will make a lot more sense post-match with her winning.
I have a hard time picking Nikki because I think this storyline is outstayed its welcome, and I think it's over. So I'm going with Brie Bella in this one. I think it ends. Brie Bella wins. Nikki becomes her personal assistant. Maybe one more match after that, but let's hope not. I'm tired of it. On to the next one. Grudge match. The Big Show taking on Rusev. I will go on this one, and I'm picking Rusev for this one. I think Rusev stays undefeated, and I don't think the Big Show is the one to break that streak.
I agree. Rusev.
All right. We only got one difference right now. It ends up being in a match that neither of us really care about. So, Tag Team Championship match. The Usos challenging the current WWE Tag Team Champions, the Dust Brothers. Who you got in this one?
Dust Brothers, Stardust and Goldust will hold on to the belts until at least Royal Rumble.
I'm with you. I'm sorry, audience. It's pretty boring right now, but I'm trying to pick smartly. And I'm not trying to copy Travis. This is exactly what I think is going to happen, and I think the Dust Brothers do retain the WWE Tag Team Championship titles. On to the last female match of the evening, and Paige challenging the champion AJ Lee for the Divas title. I think that AJ Lee will retain the title just because the title's changed hands a little bit too much recently, so I think AJ Lee will retain the title on Sunday at Hell in a Cell.
I got Paige winning and winning the belt back. I would think that I would not be surprised if AJ Lee has another one of those couple months hiatus off TV after this pay-per-view, and that allows Paige to kind of move on. I know she's supposed to be on Total Divas now, along with Alicia Fox.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's much reason for the belt to stay on the only woman in the company who's not in Total Divas. So I'll say that they've been pushing Total Divas in every other way. They'll give it to Paige, who is now going to be on that show.
All right, and on to the next mid-card championship title, the United States Championship. We got The Miz with his stunt double, Damian Mizdow, challenging Sheamus for the U.S. title. I'll start with this one, too, and I'll go Sheamus on this one. Sheamus retains the title because I think that sets him up with a feud with Bray Wyatt coming back to the WWE.
This is a really tough one. I'm going to take Sheamus, too, but I was really close because the whole stunt double, I can see The Miz winning it, and then the sweet ass fake belt, like paper belt that Mizdow would make would be so fucking funny, and it'd be hilarious on Monday. But I can't. I can see it happening, but I'm not picking it. I think the smart pick is Sheamus.
Smart pick is Sheamus, and right now we differ on the two chick matches again. So we got two matches left to pick. The co-main event. We'll start with the match that will be the first of the co-main events. Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose inside the Hell in a Cell structure. Travis, you can pick this one first. Who are you taking in this big matchup on Sunday?
Dean Ambrose goes over clean on Seth Rollins.
Woo! Picking Dean Ambrose straight up clean. I'm going Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins is riding the tidal wave high right now, and he stays on that tidal wave high, especially after the curb stomp to Orton. So now we differ on three matches. Finally got a difference in a male match. Which brings us to our the true main event and the headline of Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. My favorite wrestler, the best in the world, Randy Orton challenging the greatest WWE champion of all time, or at least that's what they say, John Cena. You want to pick this one first, or you want me to pick this one first?
Go ahead. You can have this one first.
John Cena. I just think hands down, I think it's pretty much, at least I think it's common sense. He challenges Brock Lesnar again for the strap, and I think now after what we saw on Monday with Seth Rollins, I think that Randy Orton's attention is going to go ahead and turn to Seth Rollins moving forward.
Randy Orton's going over clean on Cena.
Oh, boy. But I'm telling you, I would love it. If this happens, I would absolutely love it. I will gladly buy you a third bottle of brandy and store it in my beer cabinet because I have your other two sitting here yet. And,
after hearing these picks, I have to see Hell in a Cell because that last hour, if I got Ambrose and you got Rollins and I've got Orton and you got Cena, whew, I mean, that's going to be a big last hour for the pencil to see who's got the minds that they think they have.
It's going to be fantastic, man. I hope you can catch a bar down there. I hope you can catch it live. If not, hopefully you can catch up on it when you get back. But that'll wrap up our first part of the show, man. Safe drive to Nashville. Have a great time, dude. I know you will. It's
follow me at Travis Mester at Pencil Podcast. I'll be updating things. I will legally document everything that I can. I can't promise that that's going to be everything that I do, but I will make sure that I take you all on my journey with me.
It's at Travis Mester on Twitter. And again, just to support this podcast, share us on Twitter and Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. It's at Pencil Podcast, or visit us online at www.pencilpodcast.com. Coming up next is Jon Wolford, the new president of operations for Heavy On Wrestling. We're going to get down to the bottom of why he took over Heavy On Wrestling from David Sabick and what the future of Heavy On Wrestling and independent wrestling in Minnesota holds.
You've been listening to another great episode of The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast coming straight at you every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. But hang around, we got a lot more to come, because up next is the guest of the evening. We dive right into the world of professional wrestling, asking all the questions that you want answers to. Up next.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back with the guest of the evening, somebody I'm actually pretty happy to bring on the show because I was highly involved in their Heavy On Wrestling promotion. It's based out of Minnesota, but travels the Midwest, putting on some of the best cards with the best talent that you will find. They were the hosts for Jerry Lynn's retirement show, recently just hosted a huge show in Wisconsin entitled Legendary with people like Booker T, Scott Steiner, Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake Roberts, and some of the best independent wrestling talent in the world. He's also the brand new president of operations for Heavy On Wrestling. Joining me today is Jon Wolford. Jon, welcome to the cast, man. How have you been?
Good, brother. How are you? I'm
good, man. I'm living the dream. I'm not taking bumps anymore, but I guess I take bumps via the airwaves a little bit here and there, trying to stay involved in pro wrestling as much as possible. And with me not living in Minnesota anymore, I don't know as much going on over there as some people, that live in that area do. First off, man, how did that Legendary show go? Because I know the DVD is not available yet, but it's going to be coming out soon, and they can get that at heavyonwrestling.com, I'm presuming, which is also going to be a brand new website as well. As far as the show goes, in your opinion as a promoter and as a guy who was highly involved in absolutely everything with the show and working from, with the casino to the talent, were you satisfied with the show?
I think so. We kind of had at a disadvantage because it was in Red Cliff, Wisconsin, which was kind of a remote area. So we were kind of leery at how far people were willing to come. But I think if you put the right talent out there, the people will come. And we had people coming up from Milwaukee, Minneapolis. So I think it went really well. I think we got well over 1,000 people again, and I think it was very professional looking. I'm sure you saw some of the still photos, and they did a really nice job with staging and lighting and putting it all together. I think we were pretty happy. We were pretty exhausted, but pretty happy with the result.
Well, I think from my estimation, being involved in pro wrestling as long as I have been, I saw the pictures of the show, and it looked like the most professional put-on show that I've ever seen. And that's no disrespect to any other show that I've been a part of, and that's not even going to take anything away from the Jerry Lynn show, because that show was absolutely amazing. But the Jerry Lynn show didn't have, the big awning over the ring and basically like this show did. But we had a sweet entrance, that's for sure, and great talent on that card as well. But looking at the event poster, the talent that was on that show, Legendary, with Sean Waltman, X-Pac, you had Kings of the Underground, who are some of the bigger names in indie wrestling, and not to mention the plethora of talent we have in Minnesota as far as that you guys booked on that show. I guess my thing is I had Lance Horde on the show. I've had Darren Corbin on the show, and when I asked them about Legendary, it didn't seem like they were hesitant to say, it was a fantastic show, but do you think that people even in your eyes, did you have higher expectations for the show than actually what happened?
I think because of the scope, I think the casino did, but I think they weren't too familiar with wrestling.
Right.
And I think when you lay out all the star power, I think a lot of them, if you're not wrestling knowledgeable, you just kind of take your word for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we disappointed them. I don't think that. I think they didn't know what to expect. So 2,000, 5,000 people,
right?
And I don't think they realized that. Kind of for the most part, the landscape of wrestling has changed, and it's kind of a different animal. That it's very rare to get 2,000 to 5,000 for an indie show. But
oh, absolutely.
I think after the atmosphere and the enthusiasm that they saw, I think they were pretty impressed.
Yeah, I think, with your guys' shows, for the most part, is you put so much into promotion with yourself, and when Dave was with you guys running it, you put so much into promotion, and guys like me and other guys would kill to be on those shows because they are so much fun and they are so professional, and you have an opportunity to work with some of the best talent in the world that our expectations as wrestlers for your next show are so high, and we expect them, going into those shows, we expect them to be met or exceeded all the time, and that doesn't happen all the time, although the quality of your shows and the talent that you use does not change. That does not change whatsoever, and this is a remote location in Red Cliff, Wisconsin. It's not Minneapolis like the Jerry Lynn show was, or even the Eau Claire show that we did last year for Declaration. Eau Claire's a pretty big city in Wisconsin, and it's a college town, and it drew very well. I guess even after, how do you feel when the final bell rings and the match is over at Legendary? Is that when you can finally breathe a little bit, or are you still kind of walking on eggshells until all the talent gets back to the airport and they get home, and then you can finally put your feet up and I guess reap the benefits of all the hard work that you and Dave put into that show?
Kind of both. For me personally, I can't speak for Dave. There is a bit of a sigh of relief when it is done, and and of course getting everybody's travel arrangements set up and all that. That's part of it. But I think for me, I'm always thinking, because usually the difference between Dave and I is what I try and do, because I kind of put together, the bulk of the content of the show. So what I try and do as much as I can is go out into the crowd and watch the show with the crowd and see what went right, what went wrong. This guy looked good, this guy did not. And I try and break apart the show, and then I take it with me pretty much the next morning, and I'll go through it myself, kind of like watching game tape for a football team. I'll kind of do that and go through what I saw and who blended well and who didn't. So I always try and put the best card I can, the most complete, top to bottom, and I just take it that way. So for me, the most part, I can breathe a sigh of relief, but it's kind of like I'm always, seeing where we can improve right away.
Yeah.
I don't even, it's just part of how I'm wired, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes your promotion so successful compared to other promotions as far as putting on these quality shows, is you look to see what worked and you look to see what didn't work. And if it didn't work, you're not going to repeat the same mistake twice, and which is awesome. And that goes with who you book as far as talent goes. But I think you guys, as far as talent goes, Heavy on Wrestling's been around forever. If people don't know this, they have been around forever. They ran shows in Duluth, for the longest time, and then the Jerry Lynn show was, at least in my recollection, was one of the first shows where they branched outside and went to the Twin Cities, and it was absolutely phenomenal to be a part of that for, first and foremost. But they drew well, and I never was part of a card with you guys where I looked at the roster and said, well, this guy doesn't belong here, or this guy doesn't, this guy shouldn't be here. For the most part, every person that you booked should be there, at least deserves an opportunity to be there and to show you as the booker or whoever else was in charge at that time to, that they belong on the show. And I know earlier you mentioned, the casino maybe wasn't as happy with the show. And I've wrestled shows at the casinos before, and I think casinos are just, they hoop dreams for the most part. I think they envision that they're going to put up this money and they want, like you said, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people to show up at some remote location in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Casinos don't understand professional wrestling. The concept is awesome, and if they're going to allow us to perform there, we're going to take it, but it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, trying to draw that many people unless you're WWE, because even TNA, you guys, Heavy on Wrestling outdraws TNA at your shows for house shows. So, I mean, unless you're WWE, to draw an audience that is that significant, because, I mean, that's saying something in itself. And I was recently at a SmackDown event down here in Milwaukee. It's a live TV, I mean, it's not live, but it's a TV taping for SmackDown, and they couldn't fill up the upper bowl at all. It was completely shut off.
Oh, really?
And, so for a casino to want a Heavy on Wrestling to come in and sell 5,000 tickets. I mean, they need to understand that that's not going to happen, regardless of who you book. And I thought you guys did a fantastic job with what you had, as far as your budget goes, and you worked with it, and you guys booked awesome talent. And, kudos to you guys for being able to do that and to keep doing that. And the Minnesota wrestling community for sure, and even the people in Wisconsin, and some of the comments that I read on the Heavy on Wrestling Facebook page, everybody was really happy with it, and everybody had a good time. And Roddy Piper retweeted pictures of people taking pictures with him at the show. So ultimately, I think everybody had a good time, reading Twitter and everything. So congratulations on that. And congratulations on the new role with Heavy on Wrestling. When I was there, you and Dave kind of ran the show together. And, for the most part, I dealt with you towards the end of things. And, when Dave mentioned that on Facebook that he was stepping down from Heavy on Wrestling and that you were taking over, I knew it was in good hands. But can you really tell us, why that came about or what actually happened there? Why did Dave step away, and why are you, heading up the ship moving forward?
Well, I guess it started, to clarify one thing, Dave is still very much with Heavy on Wrestling. He's still the co-owner. I think it was a decision that he made on his own, and he started HOW in 2007, I believe. And I first came aboard in 2009, and it was just kind of one of those things where we started working together more and more, and I didn't expect to. My expectations coming in, I saw he had a product with great potential, so I just started investing in it, and that's really how it started. And through that, you earn trust, and you work together, and then he could tell that I wasn't some crazy person, or at least
didn't know then that you were a crazy person until now.
Right. It's amazing what you know now, but it's and I told him what my intentions were, and I wanted to, I wanted to learn the business and kind of take my time with it, and that's what we did. So really, it wasn't until the Jerry Lynn show that my first show was actually the Ric Flair show in 2010, of where I was actually involved. And then it just kind of slowly grew. He kind of slowly evolved my role. And it wasn't until the Jerry Lynn show that I was actually booking talent and kind of setting up the card, and it just increased. And I think he could tell that I had a passion for it, and I was willing to learn, and not kind of, because a lot of times you work for a lot of these companies, and I imagine the promoters or the bookers or whatever, they kind of come in acting like they know what they're doing. You know what I mean, or like they've got everything figured out.
Oh, trust me, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I mean? And I never felt that way. I always felt like, yes, this is where I want to get eventually, but I know that I've got to shut my mouth and open my eyes and open my ears and just kind of learn. And I think we just kind of grew to the point eventually where he kind of liked my ideas and he trusted me. I think that's the most important thing. And he wanted to get into this entertainment-heavy avenue, which he always had an interest in doing, whether it was booking comedians or dancers or, for different casinos and venues. And he wanted to start really exploring that. And so I think he trusted me enough to kind of run things, I guess. So we're gonna go with it. But he's still very much with the company. He's a phone call away if I need him. He's still going to be handling a lot of the promotion side, which HOW is known for. That will still be very much Dave. It's just kind of the management stuff, dealing with the boys, stuff like that. I still like that for some reason. I don't know. But
you still like dealing with the guys?
I enjoy working with the roster and kind of sculpting it and molding it and maximizing the potential out of everybody, whether it's names, locals, indie talent from around the country. I like to mesh that together.
Sure. And so my question for you is, I've had people ask me, Renny, have you ever thought about running a show? Well, yeah, I think about it, but I'm not dumb enough to do it. And that's, for me, and you laugh, and that's what a lot of people will do. Like, what do you mean you're not dumb enough to do it? It's a lot of damn work. Like, you don't just wake up tomorrow and paste a card on Facebook and expect 2,000 people to show up. Right. And, and that's what a lot of promoters still think it is. And by promoters, I use that term extremely loosely with those people. In your case, why? I mean, why did you want to do this? Did you know that how much headache was going to come with the role before you got involved in it? I mean, you said you shut your mouth, you opened your eyes and opened your ears, so you learned as you went. But, looking back now, even with the amount of headaches that you have to deal with, why did you get involved in it? And are you currently still, are there things that, would you go back and change, I guess? Would you decide, back in 2009, if you knew what you knew now, would you decide, screw this, I'm not going to get involved in that because it's too much of a headache?
I think I would do it all over again. And you're right, it can be a headache. It's a lot of, as you know, a lot of politicking, a lot of bullshit, a lot of
right.
Ulterior motives, but I really can't. I really don't regret anything. I think I went about it the right way, and I think that how HOW has evolved from 2007 to 2009 to Jerry Lynn to now. I mean, you can see the evolution of it. So I think we're just trying to. I guess my original intent, this is kind of a pipe dream philosophy of mine, but I love the business because what it did for me as a teenager, as a college student in the Attitude Era and stuff like that. So I love the business from that standpoint, and I would ultimately, this sounds kind of wacky and I get a lot of blank stares when I say this, but I think that the territories, now is kind of the time for the territories to kind of come back a little bit. And what I mean by that is not like they were from the 40s to the 80s. I mean, I realize it can't be like that ever again. But the way the wrestling business is now, it's too top heavy. There's no, there's one, maybe two places to work. Back in the territory days, you didn't have to worry about that. You had lots of viable places to work. So for me, I just want to strengthen HOW to the point where, okay, that's kind of the Minnesota deal, Western Wisconsin type deal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the territory days are something where, I got involved in wrestling 11 years ago, and the territories were gone at that point. And
yep.
It's, we hear all the stories. When I first got into the business, there were still, some old timers around who would always tell us those stories, back in my day or back in the territory days. And I didn't really appreciate them when I first got in because I was 16 years old. I was a young punk and didn't really give a shit. I mean, and that was the attitude I had, and it didn't get me anywhere. And obviously I grew and I learned, and I look back and I watch on the network and YouTube and whatever else, some of the stuff from the territory days. And some of the first tapes that I bought in VHS to study the craft of professional wrestling were AWA tapes and territory tapes, because that, they were great, and it was great for professional wrestling. And if that could ever somehow make a comeback, or, like you said, it's never going to come back. It's just not. It's not possible.
Yeah, not in the form that it was. No.
No, I mean, if we can do something along the lines, though, where obviously WWE is going to be nationwide and TNA is going to do their thing, but if we have the Lucha Lucha Del Rey or whatever, El Lucha, the new Lucha show, and it looks really cool. If that's just going to stay out in Los Angeles, and we got PWG out there, and we got Pro Wrestling Syndicate in the East Coast, and if there are companies like that in Ring of Honor that can strictly kind of draw in one big area, and if Heavy can do that in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area, it's definitely possible. And I guess my question to you then would be, what would you say to people that say, well, John, you have this pipe dream to basically be the go-to promotion in Minnesota, Wisconsin, but you only run 2 shows a year, or you only run 3 shows a year. What would your response be? Because guys like me, I wish you ran more shows when I was wrestling, because they were so much fun, and I got to work with people that could teach me stuff, and I learned so much on the shows. But I understand there's a lot that goes into them. So what do you say to somebody that says that, well, I mean, you got this dream, when are you going to start running more shows like so-and-so promotion down the road?
Right. And I think that's the problem. When you run shows like ours, I mean, yeah, they cost money. and a lot of times we can go over budget with it. But what we're trying to do is provide a product that no one else provides. And in Minnesota, no one else provides that product. But like you said, on the same hand, it costs money to fly in all this talent, and you can't do it monthly. I mean, you really can't. I mean, not yet, until it picks up steam. The other thing that we have going against us, some would say, is that Dave and I both live in Duluth. Right. We're nowhere near the Twin Cities market, which I'm sure some people are okay with, but it's and the Duluth market, they're they could take it or leave it, as far as professional wrestling goes. They're just kind of, okay, yeah, okay. They're not too, gung-ho about it. So we also have to watch what the demand is, So a lot of times if you book the hell out of a show and you get, 600 people, that seems okay, but did you know what I mean? Did you make enough to where you can do this in 30 days?
Right.
Do it all again and bring in X-Pac and bring in Matt Hardy and bring in, it's something that we're still tinkering with to this day. We have to figure out how to maintain like what makes us, but
right.
But still make enough to where we can keep the train rolling.
Sure.
And like I said, as a result, he'll get 3-4 shows a year, but and I thought when I first got in, I thought, oh, Dave, we need to run monthly, we need to this and this, and he's just kind of nodding and smiling, and he's like, okay, you'll find out.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you mentioned, obviously, financial purposes. I mean, it does cost money to put on these shows. And I was on a show one time where a guy booked a show, and he walked outside the curtain, took one look at the crowd, and I'm not shitting you, he had a heart attack. He legitimately had a heart attack, a miniature heart attack right there in the locker room. Guys, other workers in Minnesota, if you're listening to this, you absolutely know exactly what I'm talking about. I was sitting right there, scared the shit out of me, because I was like, what is going on here? Until I realized, well, yeah, I mean, it was serious. He had a heart attack, but he legitimately had so much anxiety because he had so much money into the show, and he didn't make it back. So that's a risk that you obviously take every time you put on a show, even if it's a paid show. And I'm not really going to get into that because it's neither here nor there, but one thing, and I can't remember who said it, and even if I did, I wouldn't even say their name, but I don't. But I remember when you first brought in the Kings, as far as Luke Hawx, Scott Summers, and Ryan Genesis, some of the guys or some of the people were like, well, why are they flying these guys in from New Orleans and Dallas when A, the Minnesota audience will have no idea who these guys are, and B, that's money they could have spent more on, my payday or whatever. I didn't know who they were before the Jerry Lynn show. I talk with them quite a bit now. I think they're fantastic. They're fantastic workers, first off. Luke Hawx is one of the best workers in the entire country. And if they don't know who they are, by now, they should. But I guess when it comes to something like that, where does that decision come to bring these guys in? Now, was this something that you brought them in because they were friends with Jerry on the Jerry Lynn show, and that's how that relationship with Heavy on Wrestling and the Kings started? Or I mean, that was my assumption, but I guess I wasn't even entirely sure where they came from. And 100% truthfully honest, I'm glad you brought them in. It added a different element to the shows. People in Minnesota never saw these guys before, and it gave us a chance to get to know them and work with them and learn some different things from around the country.
Yep. And the Jerry Lynn show, that's how the ball got rolling with Scott and Luke, because Jerry wanted those two there first and foremost. So that's how we met. And then I started doing some homework on them. So that was basically my decision to bring in those three. And I guess that kind of fits in with my philosophy of giving the wrestling audience a potpourri of things, whether it's top names from the past or recent past, the top guys in Minnesota, and the top indie talent from around the country. And it was a questionable decision, but I told Dave that these guys can go. I did my homework on them. I said, I'm bringing them in. I said they've got a good look, they've got a good thing going, and just trust me, let's just let her roll. And I kind of knew that some of the guys, and I had heard that too, Renny, that there were some that were kind of butthurt about it, about why you're bringing in these, no one's ever heard of them. That's kind of the point, and that kind of goes back to my philosophy, is to keep the crowd guessing. That's our job, is to keep them guessing and wondering, who the hell are these guys? Where did they come from? What's this all about? Where are these vignettes coming from? And, this and that. That's our job. Right. And whereas many other companies, we're not going to name any, but it's, if you recycle the same 12 guys every month and you just mix and match different matches every month, well, these guys haven't faced each other in a while. We'll just, what is that doing? How is that helping?
Right.
You know what I mean? So that was a decision that I made years ago to bring those in, and I will continue to do that because, they are kind of catching on. They are and the people that have come to see these guys live, whether it's the boys or fans, they love them. They're intrigued by them. They want to know more about them.
They're intrigued because they've never seen them before, like you said. I mean, and I'm not one to shy from it, and you might want to be politically correct, but I'm not going to be. There's a lot of shit shows in Minnesota and around the country for the simple fact that there are a couple of reasons. One, there are 3 different shows on the same Saturday in Minneapolis, so now you have 3 promoters picking from the same talent pool. And by talent, again, I have to use that word loosely, the talent pool. Minnesota has some of the best wrestlers in the country. Don't get me wrong. It's some of the absolute best, if not the best wrestling in the country when we talk about the top 7, 8 guys. But once you get below those guys, now you're talking about people who don't belong in the wrestling ring. And I have no problem saying that. I never had a problem saying that. And you have promoters who play dress up, who run the same venue every month, or and don't get me wrong, I worked for promotions that ran the same month and they were good. Like Primetime Wrestling down in Bloomington, same venue, same roster, and they drew consistently, and the shows were fun and they were entertaining. I had no problem with that one. But there are other ones who will run and they'll have 30 people in the audience, and it kills what professional wrestling is, because if this is somebody's first show and this is what they're experienced to, they're never going to go back to another one. So it's just, when you guys put them on, I appreciate it because as a wrestler, because the people, the audience appreciates what you bring in. And one of the things you mentioned that you bring in are some of the past names in professional wrestling, like recent legends. And I've always been torn on that, because I think that there are some legends who draw and there are some legends who absolutely don't do anything. And I don't, and I respect them for what they did in the business, but I would never pay them to come on my show, to be there. And I guess my question is, how do you, I guess, differentiate between those legends? Because I've been on shows where, like, for instance, and this is no disrespect to like a Greg Gagne, but he's been there. And I don't think that Greg Gagne is drawing any more people in for what he's getting paid. A Roddy Piper? Absolutely. Absolutely is Roddy going to draw people and sell tickets. Where do you draw that line, and where do you look at it, and I guess, how do you make that decision on, if you're going to bring a legend in, who do you spend money on and who's just not worth it?
Well, I think a lot of that I defer to Dave on that one a lot of times, because I think me personally, where I draw the line is, what's a good example? Brutus Beefcake. We had him up in Duluth here this past summer. Now, again, like you said, respect the hell about what he's done. He was a big name in this business. And should he be at a Heavy on Wrestling show? Absolutely. Should he be on the card? I don't know. I don't know about that. So that's kind of where, and you kind of have to look at these guys and what can they do physically, and just because they can put on a cute 12-minute tag team match, does that mean we should do it? I don't know about that. And I think the bigger names like that, I think Dave and I have to be more selective in what their role will be that night. Like I said, like a Harley race or something like that. Yeah, bring him in. That'd be awesome. 2 hour,
Right.
A 2 hour signing and meet the fans and, maybe do some ref work. There's other things that they can do. Because the thing that I feel bad about is if there is a 30-year guy and he gets in the ring and people are just like, oh,
Right.
what the hell happened to him? You know what I mean? Like they don't, boy, he really let himself go. I would feel awful for the talent to have to go through that.
Right.
You got to be selective, and I think we're always on the learning curve on that, because a lot of times, for instance, Legendary, we brought in Jake, and we were under the impression that he was going to work, and so we're like, okay. And then he got there, and there was something wrong with his leg. And he'll say, brother, I can't go. I got this issue with my leg, and this and that. So then what do you do? So then we got to, troubleshoot and put out fires. And so it's just stuff like that. You just kind of have to keep an eye on who's still pretty active, who still, can go. And, just kind of figure out everybody's roles going forward.
Right, and I agree with you. Obviously, there are going to be guys that are out there that can draw, and like I said, but I do know that there are guys who've done a lot for the business that just aren't going to draw. And when it comes to what you're doing, you're running a business, and you're not going to spend money on a guy just because you want to, say thank you for what they did in the wrestling business and give them a payday. You can't do that in your position. You need to book guys that are going to make you money, because at the end of the day, this is a job for you. It's a job for us as wrestlers. And, as much as I would love to hang out with Bruce the Barber Beefcake at a bar, I'm not paying him. Like you said, no offense to, I don't mean this disrespect to anybody that out there listening, but I'm not paying him to bring him in, because I just don't think that you're going to make that up in ticket sales. And basically, and I got this straight from Al Snow from the Jerry Lynn show. He's like, you're only as good as how much money you can draw. And that's why he said, he used John Cena as an example. John Cena is not the best wrestler in the world, but he's the best wrestler in the world. And, one of the first times I heard it that way, and I was like, well, I'm a business guy, and yeah, this makes sense. If you can draw money and you can make me money, I will book you and I will have you on my shows. And I think you guys are lucky, though, that the talent that you get to pick from are hopefully bringing you guys money, but also they're good. And so the fans are getting what they pay for, and hopefully exceed their expectations. I got a couple more questions here, and one thing, and I don't know if you want to touch on this or not, but I want to bring it up because it's interesting to me. The vignettes for your Legendary show tease an NWO reunion at the show. You had X-Pac, you didn't have Kevin Nash, you didn't have Scott Hall. Reading Dave's tweets and his Facebook, it sounded like there was an issue with Kevin Nash not being able to make the plane. Can you dive into what that all happened and why that didn't actually come to fruition for the Legendary show?
Yeah, I can touch on it. It was originally going to be Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and X-Pac, and we were going to have the big NWO thing, and and we had negotiations, and we were all ready to go. And then I think it was Kevin. Kevin evidently had to do filming for Magic Mike 2, so he couldn't make it. And then something happened with Scott, as has been known to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of shied away from him. And yeah, that's kind of what the original plan was. And but we still had Waltman, and so we brought in Scott Steiner, and kind of, yeah, but that was the original plan. And see, that's the thing. That's the thing that I've found out with booking is it's never a sure thing, especially with a lot of the bigger names. Something can happen. They can turn on a dime, and next thing you know, you've touted them for whatever, touted them, teased them, and all of a sudden they're not there.
And speaking of big names, and I guess throwing wrenches into your plans, we got to touch on this. It was an internet popular story because it happened. We were all part of it. X-Pac tearing his asshole at the Jerry Lynn show. Just unbelievable that this happened and how it happened, and he was able to finish the match. And he talked about it on Stone Cold's podcast, and it made all the dirt sheets. You were there, one of your first big shows that you're running and you're part of and you're hands-on. When you find out that X-Pac's going to the hospital, where were you when you found out that Sean's going to the hospital, and what do you even do as a promoter? I mean, I guess it's not necessarily your responsibility, I guess, per se, because you're not the one that forced him to do that move, but what's going through your head, where are you at, and what happened?
Well, I think everybody knows by now he was attempting to give Horace a Bronco Buster in the corner. Horace moved. There was no padding, kind of the piece behind the turnbuckle that connected
right.
that wasn't padded, and he did his failed Bronco Buster, and he slid forward, and it was the tear heard around the cities that night.
Tear heard around the world.
Yep. And I didn't really know about it because we were talking, Sean and I were talking right after the show, and he didn't really let on. He just said, I hope you liked it. I hope I did good. And I said, you did great. And, you could tell something was up. But, you don't really, you ask if they're okay. They say, yeah. And that's pretty much the end of it. Well, then after we got done at the show, I went back to my hotel room with my wife to get ready to go to the after show. And I got a text from Dave saying that Sean's headed to the hospital. He's bleeding all over his bed, something to that effect. And I thought,
definitely scary getting that news too.
Yeah, I thought, what now? So we just kept an eye on him. He was already, I believe, was it Ryan Shamrock? I think.
Yep.
She took him to the hospital, or went with him to the hospital, so he was taken care of there. And we just checked in on him periodically throughout the night, and just made sure everything was okay. And he had to spend the night in the hospital, and we got him another flight home and all that good stuff. But the part of that show that scared me more was the opening.
I know exactly where you're going. Yep. I know exactly what you're going to say.
John Johnson pulled the rope down, and Luke just went right over and splatted on the concrete there, and I think he told me he broke his thumb.
Yeah, he broke his thumb. I'm pretty sure he had a concussion. Damn near broke his neck. Didn't we also a light structure from the ceiling fall at that show, or is that a different show that happened?
I think that was a different one.
Okay, because I remember that happened at some different show too. But I guess always something to worry about or to think about. And I guess moving forward, when you look at Heavy on Wrestling, and the state of independent wrestling in Minnesota being the way that it is, and I'm not going to lie, but the state of wrestling in Minnesota isn't great by any means. There's a couple great promotions and good promotions. Eric Can runs First Avenue Wrestling or First Wrestling, but that's a totally different type of a ball game than a heavy on wrestling. It's not even remotely close to your shows. But there's no other promotion that I really feel is a traveling promotion either that does shows that is, can be as successful as you guys. So where do you go from here, John? What's next for heavy on wrestling? I mean, you don't have anything in the works, but if in a perfect world, when would you like to have your next show? Moving forward, what do you expect for heavy on wrestling?
Well, I think, like you said, the state of the indie scene in Minnesota, you'll get a lot of differing opinions depending on who you ask. I agree with you. I don't think it's in a particularly healthy spot. I think, you and I even talked on the phone a couple months ago.
Right.
No, there's like 6 or 7 promotions in the Twin Cities alone.
And again, we use that term promotions very, very loosely.
But it's like, if you look at what each one is doing, are any of them doing anything that's setting themselves apart from anybody else? No.
I would say besides Eric Can at First Wrestling, he definitely, obviously has unique and he draws well and they're a lot of fun. I think Primetime does a very family-oriented show, extremely family-oriented, like an extremely PG version of things, to the point where even as a wrestler, if we swore, they were going to dock pay from us. So, it's a fun atmosphere there too. But I've worked the other promotions and they can get mad at me if they want to. I'm not working for them now, but no, they're doing absolutely nothing else to set themselves apart. Either they're, I guess a mark being a promoter per se, or they're an actual wrestler on the card booking it, which to me are no-nos in general for both. But there is nothing that I was a part of that they really, separating themselves from the rest of the group.
No, I agree. And I think that's what, if you have a company and you're a promoter or a booker for these companies, I think what you have to do is you kind of have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, is the product I'm putting on, is it helping the wrestling business? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it doing its part to strengthen the region?
Right.
You know what I mean? And if your answer is no, then you got to ask, what am I doing this for? Yeah. So, do they do that? And like you said, maybe they're, they like to play Vince McMahon once a month, and they think it's neato. I don't know. I just don't see how it's helping anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand either when they look out at the crowd and they see 60 chairs, are filled and they see 120 that are empty, how they can even have fun, in that situation. As wrestlers, I never had fun. I mean, I got paid still, but I wanted to have fun at these shows, and that's what was, great about towards the end of my run in wrestling. I literally would turn down shows because I'd look at who was on the card and I didn't want to be associated with that. I knew I wasn't going to have any fun, so why? I love wrestling, but it's not wrestling if I'm in the ring with somebody that's not good at what we do or just doesn't take it as seriously as I do, and the promoter does it the same way. I didn't do it. So, and I know heavy on wrestling moving forward, if Dave's not even as hands-on as he used to be, it doesn't matter. You were fantastic to work with when I was there, and I owe a lot to you guys for bringing me in, and I kind of mentioned this story on social media. We had, one time an episode where and you guys are great. You paid the wrestlers before the show, and that's something that as wrestlers we love that. We love getting paid before the show. It's just something little that is like, all right, well they put this money aside for us. They have it. They can reap the benefits of the show. But I looked and I felt that I didn't have enough to cover what I was owed, I guess, per se. And I mentioned this on Twitter, and I came to you, and I'm telling you, if you guys are listening to the show, this is what John did. He took out his wallet and was going to give me money from his personal account. And you probably remember this like yesterday, John. I said, no, I did not want your personal money at all. I wanted to be paid what you guys thought I was worth. And it was in Eau Claire, where I went to college. Went out, had a 5-way match, which I thought was one of my favorite matches I've ever had. I thought it was one of the best matches on the card, if not the best match on the card. And as immediately as I got through the curtain, I sat down to take my boots off, and you were the first person to meet me there with more money. And it was just like, well, fantastic. I'm glad you, thought I was worth it. And it wasn't one of those things where, you weren't a shady promoter. And if I would have done that to anybody else, because I don't like doing those things, if I would have done it to anybody else, I'm sure they would have been taken back by it or just completely pissed off or whatever it might be. But you're a businessman and a true professional, and I think that says a lot about you as a promoter. Guys want to work for somebody like you, and fans want to come out and support a promotion that you're going to run because you run it as professional as can be, book the best talent you can book. And at the end of the day, if the fan doesn't go home entertained, you know that you didn't do your job, but that's never been the case in any of the Heavy on Wrestling shows that I've been to. So I need to say thank you for booking me and giving me an opportunity, especially that Jerry Lynn show that really propelled my career moving forward. I don't think I would have gotten a look from the WWE if it wasn't for that show, because it really gave me the confidence moving forward. And I don't know how I got booked on that show, but I did. So I really do appreciate you obviously utilizing me on the shows, and I wish you guys nothing but the best, and I hope that you guys can get a show in the works here soon and everything turns out to be successful for you.
Well, we appreciate it. I think that it goes back to the philosophy that we had, is to A, recognize the top talent in the state, and then B, put them in positions to succeed. And I think, and whether you're a fan or a worker or a promoter or a booker, we can all probably sit down and get our top 10 list of the top 10 guys in the state.
Easily.
It'll probably be, for the most part, pretty similar.
Oh, yeah.
So that's part of the philosophy that we have, is recognize those guys and let's see what they can do. We all know that they can face each other at a bar or a VFW on any given Saturday down there in the cities. We already know that. So let's see what they can do on a little bigger stage. Let's throw them in the mix with Al Snow, Lance Hoyt, the Kings of the Underground, Stevie Richards, Tommy Dreamer. Let's intermingle them. We've got to see what these guys can do. I mean, really do, in front of a bigger stage. And that's kind of our philosophy. That's still our philosophy, and that's what we'll continue to do. And I think as long as you treat the talent, whether it's local, regional, national, I think if you treat them with respect and you treat them with kindness, you'll get your return on it. And that's all we try to do.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And if you want to support Heavy on Wrestling, again, we mentioned earlier in the interview, their brand new website is set to debut at any time. It's heavyonwrestling.com. The legendary DVD for pre-sales, that'll be released soon as well. Or check them out on Facebook, Heavy on Wrestling Facebook page. Tons of likes on there. Follow them on there for all your up-to-date information and news on Heavy on Wrestling. And even if you're interested in what Dave's doing as far as Entertainment Heavy, he's going to have Gilbert Godfrey up in Duluth, I believe, as well. So, you can get all that information on that page as well. John, thank you, man. It's been a while since we talked. It was great to catch up, and it's great to hear your side of the fence, because as a wrestler, we deal with our own stuff, but we don't have to deal with as much headaches as you guys do. So, if you ever want to come on again, I'd love to have you again. We can chat about more Booker stories and what you have to go through. But thank you so much for your time today, and obviously, like I said, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Renny. You're doing a fine job at the podcast biz.
Oh, I try. So, and for those of you looking out for what we have next week, the guy who was responsible for my being in professional wrestling, Red Lightning, will join us on the Pencil. I will be sending out more information via pencilpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast. This episode is available on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and if YouTube's not being a big dick, we'll put it on there as well. Thanks a lot. Until next week, we'll see you then.
You've been listening to The Pencil, the professional wrestling podcast online. Follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast, or check us out online at pencilpodcast.com. You can listen to our show every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. Our show features guests from the WWE, TNA, the independent wrestling scene, and legends of wrestling past. Check it out today.